Rams fans, welcome in on this edition of Rams Showcase, Year 5 for Stafford in LA. It is happening. Plus, Stafford was the first QB domino to fall, but what impact will his decision have on the Rams? Plus, put your ideas in my brain and let me put some clothes on them. Fan quesos. Let's rock.
This is Rams Showcase with your host, Sheriff Joe Bags.
Yes, welcome into it, Rams Showcase. I am Sheriff Joe Bags at Sheriff Joe Bags at Rams Showcase. That's where you can follow along on social media. Also, Tuna and the Sheriff. That is every Thursday morning, usually about 6:45 Pacific time, every Thursday. So check us out there. We only go for about 30 minutes, but we chat mostly Rams, but we also like to bounce around the rest of the NFL as well. And sometimes also pulling on guests. So we had Ray pop on this last time, man. That was absolutely awesome. I love getting that interaction there, especially when there's somebody commenting like that they disagree. It's nice to be able to actually just be like, oh, we'll just come in and chat about it and let's talk. Instead of like how this is all pre-recorded and then everybody who disagrees with me, I can just not see it. You know what I mean? There's lots to get into, though. Before we dive into the action, heads up on a anniversary for Rams Showcase as celebrating officially 9 years doing this thing. So the 9-year anniversary is on March 16th. So it was right after the start of the new league year. So that's kind of perfect. So we'll be kicking off season 10 of Rams Showcase, which is absolutely wild, but we will be doing a live stream. I'm going to try to put that as many places as I can, so feel free to come on and either just hang and chat in the comment section if you want to hop on. I'm willing to have people come on and hang out with me. I don't know how long we're going to go, but it's a Sunday. I'm off on Sundays, so we're going to have a good time, all right? So be ready for that. More details on the timing and all that as we get a little bit closer, but that is, right around the corner. We are into March now, so 9 years, getting into season 10 of Rams Showcase. That's absolutely awesome, man. Let's go ahead and dive in, man. So I did scrap an entire segment, essentially. It was all my predictions. And once the Matthew Stafford news came out, then we got AJ Jackson news and stuff. I scrapped that segment because that kind of was like the big part of it. Is the prediction of Matthew Stafford returning was, I think, the biggest part of that. And so that was it. It did open with Stafford and Jackson both returning to the Rams. I would show you my notes on that, but I also don't care if you believe me. It's fine. Also, I do think I said it on Tuna and the Sheriff this week, so you can check that out again every Thursday morning. And also, for what it's worth, after that was my prediction that Cooper Kupp actually does stay with the Rams with a bit of a reworked deal. So it's been a little bit quiet around Cooper Kupp. Obviously, we've been kind of, in some ways, waiting for the new league year to start. His roster bonus doesn't kick until I think it was 4 days after the new league year for Cooper Kupp. So they do have a little bit of a window there. If they already have trade parameters in place, then once the new league year starts, they can go ahead and hit that and get rolling. But I also don't think it's impossible that Cooper Kupp does return to the Los Angeles Rams. And that does tie into the fact that the Rams and quarterback Matthew Stafford have come to an agreement for Matthew Stafford to return to the Rams. The details of that contract are not out yet. And yes, that's weird. It's going to be very telling what this contract is because of the conversations from the Staffords of, finding a new city and all this stuff and being mad if Cooper Kupp's going to get traded. And there's a lot of different moving pieces to this right now and what the Rams want to do long-term at the quarterback position. I think that they have to think about that as well. But with that, there are some new rumors swirling about the Stafford domino. So we know that in the NFL, Stafford was the first quarterback domino to fall. And other teams were waiting for that. We know that the New York Giants, per reports, the Giants were prioritizing Matthew Stafford. He was their number one pick. And once it was announced that Matthew Stafford's going to be returning to the Rams, then the Giants are seemingly turning their attention to Aaron Rodgers. So that was the first domino in that world. But when it comes to the Rams specifically, I think that was the first domino for us as well, which makes sense. Your quarterback is your most important piece, especially when you're dealing with a future Hall of Famer like we are in Matthew Stafford. So was there more to it of Matthew Stafford taking less with the Rams than to move on than just he didn't want to move his family. I think so. Are there any, like, did he ask for A.J. Jackson to stay? Did he say that I'll come back if I can keep A.J. Jackson? I want my line in place. Is there some kind of wish list or some kind of demands list? If there is a list, is Cooper Kupp on that list? Can Matthew Stafford now go to the Rams and say, okay, you now know exactly what other teams are willing to pay me, $90 million guaranteed over here. I'm willing to take less to stay here, so how about you bring back my guy? How about that? I'm taking $10 million less, use that money, and keep my guy Cooper Kupp around. I don't think that that's impossible. I legitimately think that that conversation may have been a thing. And I do think that Rams fans would be pretty fired up overall to have Cooper Kupp returning to the Rams. I do know a percentage of Rams fans that don't really want Cooper Kupp back. They say he's kind of done with his prime and stuff like that. But I think ultimately with him specifically, what you look at is not just production and what is his catch numbers look like and his yards look like. It's not that. It is he is a coach on the field. He makes Demarcus Robinson better. He makes Puka Nacua better. Tutu Atwell, Tyler Higbee, Matthew Stafford, and any quarterback that he's playing with, he makes them better. He is a coach on the field. So to have him back on the field, I think, is a huge plus. Whether he's the one catching the football or not, I think he makes the entire machine a better operation when he's on the football field. So we obviously have to see if that is anything about that. We don't have any details on Cooper Kupp. We actually haven't heard much from that world since the initial reports of, the Rams are going to be seeking a trade immediately was the wording on Cooper Kupp's tweet. So, I mean, am I looking too deep into it? Possibly, but I also don't think it's impossible that Kupp stays around. But again, there are no details yet to the Matthew Stafford contract. And if I'm going to give you my prediction right here, this is just what I believe would happen or will happen in this situation, is going to be a one-year deal that is fully guaranteed for Matthew Stafford around that $40 million mark, but maybe a little bit higher than that. If it's anything different than that, I would anticipate maybe a 3, 4, maybe 5, that I think would be pushing it. A 5-year deal for mainly with all the guarantees being pushed into the first 2 seasons, being very front-loaded in that world. Either way, though, I do think that the contract details are important. I'm very surprised that the Rams are keeping the details from us right now. I think that that's a little bit weird. What are they trying to hide from us? I think that there's going to be a reaction. I think that that's exactly why we haven't seen those numbers quite yet, at least of time of recording. I'll let you know right now it is about noon Pacific time on the 1st of March as time of recording, and I'll keep on checking for any updates here. But so far, none, and, that's just what we're dealing with. So either way, the details I think are going to be telling on what we do after 2025 as well, because let's not ignore the fact that the Rams have had some conversations with some of these quarterbacks that are in the draft. Quinn Ewers, Milroe has been talked about as well, so maybe the Rams kind of go into the year understanding there's 1 year left on Matthew Stafford's deal. It's fully guaranteed. After that, he's either going to retire or move on. Same with Cooper Kupp. So let's get our guy in here now, let him sit for a year, watch how Matthew Stafford runs this machine, and then we're ready for a guy, maybe Quinn Ewers, to take over next year in the 2026 season. So I don't think that that's necessarily impossible, man. There's a lot of moving pieces to the quarterback spot, obviously, and the details of Matthew Stafford's deal will tell us a lot. Maybe we'll try to, once we get those numbers, we'll talk about that on Tuna and the Sheriff and kind of get his perspective, Tuna's that is, and see what that story actually is on those details. Also, kind of mentioned in there is A.J. Jackson will be returning to the Rams. It is a 3-year deal worth $57 million, $35 million in guarantees. There is no news, of course, coming out of Havenstein. We weren't expecting it, but I think when you start seeing gray hair, fans start to be like, is he going to retire? And it's like, maybe not. He's not that old, though, so he's still got plenty of years in him. But either way, with no news coming from Havenstein and the news of A.J. Jackson returning, That means the Rams starting five is officially back. From left to right, from Stafford's perspective, A.J. Jackson, Steve Avila, Bo Limmer, Kevin Dotson, Rob Havenstein, those five are under contract and back for the Rams in the 2025 season. This is definitely a top five offensive line unit, in my opinion, in the entire NFL. And I'm really excited to see Bo Limmer's progress as we get into year two for him. I think he knows that a lot of Rams fans on the internet and in the world have kind of been referencing his play that led to, Matthew Stafford not having time to see Tyler Higbee across the middle against the Philadelphia Eagles. And I mean, he's not an idiot for sure. So I think that he's got the ability to address that and get better. So I'm really excited to see year two Bo Limmer and see what he brings out to that football field. Hell yes, it's gonna be good. Also, we did hear news that Jonah Jackson have been given permission to seek a trade. So definitely some moving and shaking for the Rams. Excuse me, on their trades possibilities. Because obviously we don't know if Cooper Kupp, Jonah Jackson, we don't know if these guys will get traded, but it is at least being presented because this also could turn into a complete restructure for Jonah Jackson. But this move does make perfect sense if the Rams do trade Jonah Jackson. There is no need to have that dollar amount sitting on your bench. I know that we just did it with Joe Noteboom for a few years, but we don't need to do it again. The Rams are basically admitting defeats on this contract, essentially. Pre-June 1 trade does give the Rams $11.3 million in dead cap, but it does save $3.3 million. And a post-June 1 trade basically gets the same amount of dead cap hit, but that actually takes place over 2 years, and it opens up $9 million in cap space. So definitely some decisions and some wiggle room for the Rams when it comes to Jonah Jackson. And Jonah also, let's be real here, he's probably going to go somewhere and play just fine, all right? He's a very good player, but I think that the Rams kind of rushed him back from injury, and at the time, I don't think that he was really in a spot where he was in a rhythm. Bro Limmer absolutely was, so I think that Jonah Jackson kind of just got into a tough spot as far as getting rushed back in. At the time, Bo Limmer was definitely playing better, and so getting benched for Bo Limmer and then just kind of getting benched the rest of the season, it makes sense, and also just very indicative, again, another perfect example of the Rams admitting their mistake and just moving on and not just dwelling on it or forcing him to start because he's making a lot of money. That's what I love too. So nothing bad there. Bo Limmer, we didn't know that he would pop like he would, and it made Jonah Jackson expendable. It happens. It's unfortunate, but Jonah Jackson, I'm sure he's going to go somewhere and do just fine. Speaking of opening up another $9 million, we did get the salary cap numbers, an increase of $23.8 million, meaning the new salary cap number is $279.2 million. It's absolutely wild, man. So this is also indicative that this is going to be the last year that we're under $300 million for the salary cap, as that'll likely get hit next year. But Rams do have plenty of money to spend, ability to open up a few more dollars as well. The Stafford deets still looming, so we actually have no idea how much money we have left. The Stafford numbers, we don't anticipate being absurd, considering we've already gotten the reports that he has taken less to stay with the Rams, so we're thinking in that 40 to 45 range, but we'll, of course, get those details hopefully rather soon. Also, just a fun note here, James Gladstone getting hired as the Jaguars GM. I know this is just something I haven't had a chance to touch on yet because I haven't had an episode since. But Gladstone, at 34 years old, he's been on this trajectory for a while now, and I'm absolutely pumped to see it, man. Jacksonville got themselves an absolutely good one, man. So despite their head coach, Liam Cohen, former Rams offensive coordinator, being a bit of a corn dog, he's also a really good coach. So I say that to say that last year, at this time, the team that was making moves that was kind of getting my attention was the Washington Commanders. And I don't necessarily see the Jacksonville Jaguars making a push to be in the AFC title game. The AFC is very strong. But this year, it's the Jaguars making moves that I'm a big fan of. So James Gladstone coming over from the Rams and, digging that move, man. So they got themselves a former Ram at their GM, former Rams offensive coordinator at their head coach spot. And I don't know if you know this or not, but teams who have hired from the Rams have typically done pretty well. Atlanta Falcons with Raheem Morris, they were right there on the playoffs, but we obviously know what Minnesota's doing. We know what Green Bay's doing, so that tree is looking pretty solid, man. Moving on here, I want to touch on this real quick as far as some names that the Rams have had interest. It is Combine Weekend. Kind of crept up on me, I'll be completely honest. And some names that the Rams have shown interest in, whether it's been informal meetings, official meetings, stuff like that. So tight end Colston Loveland out of Michigan, tight end Mason Taylor out of LSU, tight end Gunnar Helm out of Texas. The Rams definitely doing some research on tight ends. That does raise a little bit of a question mark here. What are we going to see at the tight end spot once the new league year hits? Maybe some changes, so keep your eyes on that, as the meetings could be giving us a little bit of information. Next up, cornerback Dorian Strong out of Virginia Tech, cornerback Zy Alexander out of LSU. That does tell me, obviously, we're going to be looking in that world. Safety Jonas Sanker out of Virginia. Again, just secondary players here. And then wide receiver, Matthew Golden out of Texas. Wide receiver, Torrey Horton out of Colorado State. Linebacker, Danny Stutzman out of Oklahoma. And then we've also gotten the news on quarterback Quinn Ewers out of Texas. And Jaden Milroe as well, that the Rams have shown some interest in some capacity. So those are just some names that we've met with. The Rams have definitely drafted guys they did not meet with. That's happened before, and I don't know if it's necessarily a plan to do that, to be secretive or anything like that, but it is something that we have seen in the past. And just this is my off-season disclaimer for you right here, is I will admit that Ram Showcase does lack draft coverage. I will absolutely admit that, but I don't get super into the draft. As far as draft coverage goes, or predictions or anything like that. There is a bunch of guys coming into the NFL, and the Rams are going to get around 10 of them. So I like to look at more after the draft myself. I'm also, though, here for the whole process. I watch the combine. I watch the entire draft, but I'm not going to get into 40 times and all that stuff. The difference being like a tenth of a second, I don't care. That's okay. That's fine. You know what I mean? Kupp didn't run a fast 40, but it was the Senior Bowl that he logged the highest speed in that. Puka didn't record a fast 40, but it was the gauntlet that they tracked him at the highest speed during that, and that's just running straight catching footballs, man. But he logged a higher speed in that, not in the 40. You know what I mean? So yeah, you can look at these numbers all you want to, but I'm more interested in interviews and pressers. That's definitely what I'm looking for myself. The difference in these guys athletically, mostly it's minuscule. These guys are athletic freaks, all of them. They're all athletically insane. But the difference is really in the personality. It's in the attitudes. And that's also where the Rams usually nail it. So that's also where I try to pay attention to. I'm looking for personality types. We've seen a clear-cut trend in guys that the Rams like to get. They're all athletic, but we get guys like Kobe Turner, like Puka Nacua. Those are the types of players that the Rams like to bring in, and I think that that's the most important part here. So I don't get into the whole draft process as far as that goes. I'm also just not here to completely ignore it, but I'm not going to give you a mock draft, and no, I don't care to see yours. I don't care what you think the Rams are going to do at that spot. I'm not going to give you mine either, okay? When the Rams do pick somebody, I'm going to be fired up about it, and that guy's got my support. That's fine. But I will say that I will never understand the fact, because I will definitely support no matter who the Rams draft. That's hell yeah. New favorite player. Hell yeah. Let's go, man. But I'll also never understand the fact that there are some people out there that will get angry with the team when they don't draft the guy that you met at the Senior Bowl or something. And now you want him on the team because you thought he was cool and you shook your hand or whatever. I don't get it. Anyway, in other news, former Rams defensive lineman Tanzel Smart has been hired onto the Cowboys coaching staff. That's pretty cool. Also, Omar Speights' sister is still looking for help on that canvas. So if you have anybody that can help with that, definitely reach out, and it's going to be awesome. That's on my Twitter. If you need help too, I can get you to her. Fan Quesos, that's next. It's Ram Showcase. Rams Showcase. I'm Sheriff Joe Bags. Heads up, the Rams just now posted, you'll probably see it, the pictures from players at the Combine to where they are now. Hilarious. It's absolutely awesome. Highly recommend checking that out. Let's get into our fan quesos. I'm going to skip the one that is on, let me just look at it again just to be sure here. Now we'll touch on it because it's here. I did post 4 fan quesos before the Stafford news, so there's a lot of Stafford stuff in this. Just a heads up on that. So first one here, Joker from the Joker on YouTube. What do you think about the potential prospect of Rodgers and Adams with us? So the reason that I want to touch on this anyway is because I'll just address that this was a topic and I want to give my thoughts on it anyway. Also here in parentheses says, I hope we keep Stafford too, but trying to have an open mind. Yeah, which is, I think, where most Rams fans were at, where it was like, okay, well, it sounds like Stafford might go, and then you also had just too many people saying like, yep, he's gone. Yep, he's going, and so like, obviously, as YouTubers and podcasters and stuff like that, we do have a lot of like reflection of the fan base. And I try to reflect the fan base from what I see and what I feel myself. And I like to think of myself as a pretty average Rams fan. It's in my emotions, that is. But and just reason, I try to stay reasonable with it. Either way, I'm probably confusing the hell out of anybody hearing this right now. Anyway, the potential prospect of Rodgers and Adams, I never thought made any sense. Okay, to eat $45 million in dead cap for Matthew Stafford if we would have traded him, to then also pay Aaron Rodgers what could have been potentially 10, 20, 30 million dollars. I have no idea what he would have asked for. He's still getting paid for by New York. So I don't know what that number would have been. But either way, it kind of felt like, oh, if we lose Matthew Stafford, we're going to be spending more money at the quarterback position for a guy who's older. There was no reason for, in my opinion, to go from Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp to Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. What makes sense about that? I think that the Kupp and Stafford combo is better than the Rodgers and Adams combo. So I just don't understand it. But yeah, to keep an open mind, that's kind of where I was at with it, and trying to just be like, okay, let's be reasonable about this. What happens if Aaron Rodgers comes over? Yeah, we got Sean McVay. That's a big plus. I mean, obviously, coming from what he was dealing with out in New York, I mean, obviously that's an entirely different situation. But then you also got to consider the fact that he actually was looking pretty decent later in the season. So how much more time does he actually have in him? Is it 2 seasons? Is it 1? I have no idea. But either way, it never made any sense to me to make that move. But also, I don't think it was ever a real move. I don't think that if Stafford did leave, that Rodgers was ever going to come to the Rams anyway. I think that if Stafford left, we were going to roll with Jimmy Garoppolo for 1 year, probably draft somebody. Maybe Jimmy gets benched at week 12 or something like that for some rookie. Maybe it's Quinn Ewers or something like that. I don't know, but that's kind of what I was anticipating happening if Matthew Stafford did go. I didn't think that the Rams were going to make some big splash and anything crazy like that. I think it would have been Jimmy Garoppolo, who, in fairness, he can get you to the playoffs. I just don't think he's good enough to get you a Super Bowl win. I think that he is literally Jared Goff. In my mind, Jared Goff and Jimmy Garoppolo might as well be the same person. So, I don't know. Do with that what you will. Next up here, a few coming from. Actually, let me touch on John here, and then we'll end on Edwin. So John says, who do you want as our quarterback if we're not able to keep get Stafford signed, and what should our expectations be? I do think he'll be back. I just want it. It just doesn't make sense for him to leave a Super Bowl team. Absolutely right, John. I think that most fans that like, I don't want to say most fans, because there's, I don't know, man. There's it's really hard to dance around topics when it comes to Matthew Stafford and this media stuff that's happened this week. I just don't want to touch on certain things, but it's not my business. But if the Rams didn't have Stafford, I wanted to just go ahead and let's get a rookie, man. Let's Garoppolo can hang out for a bit and let's get this rookie in, and maybe at some point let's see that rookie go. But yeah, it never made sense to me to have Stafford go. And also, I mean, it's one of those things, man. It was like Stafford looking around and it's like, wow, do I really want to go there? Like, yeah, $10 more million, but they don't have a line. And what do they have to give up to even get you? Now you lost assets there. You know what I mean? So, yeah, being back with the Rams made the most sense for Stafford. These last few, though, coming here from Edwin, emphasis on the win. Says, what up, bro? What up, dude? Hope the offseason is treating you well. Always does, my guy. Always does. I take a little bit of time to relax. I spread out the episodes a little bit more, kind of chill it out. Season's a gauntlet, man. It's it's a sprint and a marathon. It's a marathon that you're forced to sprint in. Yeah. So we cut it back to a jog once the Super Bowl is done. I've been watching highlights of last season, and the more I watch, the more I believe we are definitely keeping Stafford. With that out of the way, I have 3 for you. First of all, touch on that. I think that the day of, and the only people that I think could vouch for this would be Payo Time and Rams House. The day of, I was still like, I'm 50-50. I don't know. I didn't really think he was going to go. That was the worst I was at, was 50-50. I kind of was like trying to convince myself that it was fine if he left. You know what I mean? But also, Rams get worse the second he's gone. So I think that they wanted him back. But I think that the worst that I got was 50-50 on it. And it was just that day, knowing that the other teams already had contracts on the contracts offered. So that's where I was like, okay. Because that's when it becomes public. Then, wives get involved and conversations are being had and friends and stuff like that. And decisions can be made. And then I want to touch on the fact that everybody, we had that news about Tom Brady, right? So the news that Tom Brady invites Matthew Stafford, and they have this meeting in Montana to discuss a possible move to Las Vegas. And everybody's like, oh man, this is terrible news. And then we get the news that, Rappaport says that no, it wasn't a planned meeting. They just ran into each other at this ski resort, and they just happened to be chatting and stuff like that. And what gets me about that is that Rams fans in this moment were like, oh, thank goodness, what a relief. It wasn't a planned meeting. Neither was his meeting with McVay in Cabo. So what the heck, man? It's like, how is this story calming you? That's how we got him in the first place. That made me way more nervous about it. The second it was like, oh no, it was just an unplanned thing. They just happened to run into each other. And it was like, yeah, dude. But yeah, Stafford also, I feel like, believes in destiny. And that didn't make me feel better at all. So I don't know if anybody was with me on that one, but I saw too many people being like, oof, what a relief it wasn't a planned meeting. It's like, yeah, that's how we got him. Anyway, moving into your questions, Edwin. What player in free agency would you like to see in a Rams helmet this year? Oof, dude, I have done negative research on this, I think. I don't even know who's a free agent. Man. I don't even really, I've not dug into this yet too much. I'm just trying to think of positions I want to attack. I don't know. I'm gonna think about that though, and I'll kind of pencil this one for next time, because I've been way too into just like, who are we keeping instead of outside yet. I haven't been outside yet. You know what I mean? I've still been looking at here. I don't know what I need to go get if I don't know what's missing yet. You know what I mean? I can't go to the grocery store without peeking in my own fridge. You know what I mean? So this is a perfect metaphor. I love that. Anyway, second one. Would you ever consider going to Rams training camp? I would love to go to Rams training camp. I think it'd be awesome. Typically, it's just one of those things where it's like to travel all the way out to LA and spend way too much money being in California for training camp. Yeah, I want to, man. It's just a money thing usually. If I'm going to make the trip to LA, I like to be it for a game, you know what I mean? But yeah, I would love to if I could work it out this year. More realistically, I would plan for next year, man. I'm kind of trying to do some things this year specifically to try to set myself up in some ways without going into further details that aren't necessary. But this year is going to be very busy for me, I think. So possibly next year. Let's see here. And how do you pass the time during Rams offseason? There is no offseason. I personally watch my Lakers and Dodgers and wait for Ram Showcase to drop. By the way, love the new show you're doing with Tuna. Keep it up. Oh, dude, thank you. First of all, Tuna and the Sheriff that's a fun show, man. It's cool to actually have a regular conversation with, just with another Rams person that's just like scheduled and regular. And Tuna's absolutely great, man. So there's been so many people that I've met while doing this podcast. And how many unbelievable and just like very genuine people I've been able to meet doing this podcast. It's so cool. Tuna's one of them. Edwin, you're one of them. John, who asked a question, is one of them. Like there's so many, man. So I can't list them all. I'll spend the next 45 minutes just listing people who have meant a lot to me since I've started doing this show. I mean, we're creeping into season 10, man. I mean, we're 2 weeks away from hitting my 9-year anniversary, where I will play you clips from the first episode. It's so good. But yeah, man. So, thank you, first of all. But also, how do I pass the time? I'll tell you my sports world. I'll tell you that. So once it, I'll just start now because we're in March. Now I'm pretty deep into hockey right now. Colorado Avalanche. I'm a big Avs fan, so that's kind of what I'm into now. I love that that Kevin Demoff is now involved in the Avs, and so like his Twitter is like it's like my brain essentially, and so I absolutely love that. But so I'm into hockey real hard right now, and I will sprinkle in some March Madness in there and stuff. But I really wait till like the 16 for that now. I'm not a big basketball guy, but once hockey's done, then we'll kind of get into we'll be into baseball, man. So just that little gap in there. By the time that we get to like training camp for the NFL, so like July time, the Rockies have probably been eliminated, at least emotionally, if not mathematically. And then by August, mathematically for sure. So then we're into preseason though, so I'm into the Rams right away, and because obviously the Rams are my number one team, top tier, pinnacle. Like I'll take bullets for the Rams for sure. But then the Colorado Avalanche are number 2. After that, I would probably then dig into like Texas A&M football, and then Colorado Avalanche, Colorado Rockies. The Rockies, man, that's my baseball squad. They're terrible every year. They don't care, but you know what? So there's something there, man. There's something there. It's gonna, they're gonna shock the world one of these days, dude. I'm telling you, man. Once the Monforts sell, because that ownership is an absolute mess, And before we turn this into just a Rockies ownership bashing podcast, we're going to end it there. Thank you so much for your fan quesos. Be sure to check in on Tuna and the Sheriff, as that's every Thursday morning, 6:45 a.m. Pacific time. That is on the Ram Showcase Facebook page, as well as Tuna's YouTube channel, First and Tuna on the YouTube. All right, so you can check me out on social media as well, at Ram Showcase, at Sheriff Joe Bags, just about everywhere. RamShowcase.com as well. Yeah, so check me out, dude. So that is going to do it for me. I am Sheriff Joe Bags. This has been Rams Showcase on Sports War Radio and the Fansided Network. For those of you who aren't Rams fans, our thoughts and prayers are with you. For those of you who are Rams fans, thank you so much for watching, and go Rams.